Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back Chat. I'm Amy, this is my partner Maggie. Together we are ThinkerThemer. Every fortnight we do Back Chat, and we look at or reflect on the last 2 weeks of campaigns, whether that be Game Found or Kickstarter, and we read them, we watch the videos, and we think about our level of excitement. We individually rate each campaign out of 10, and then we combine those into an average to create our full top 10 as a couple. We don't always agree on every campaign. But yeah, this fortnight has been a little bit calmer than the last, a little bit cheaper when we haven't spent as much money. No spoilers, but our ratings overall this fortnight are probably a little bit suppressed. Fewer games that are really our style of game. There are a lot of like RPG accessories and things that were on Kickstarter in the last couple of weeks, as well as like painting accessories.
Yeah, lots of painting
There was
stuff.
lots of paint and paintbrushes and things like that. So good if you're into that kind of thing. But for us, probably a bit of a slow week, but let's start talking about some games. We're starting with our number 10.
All right. So our number 10 is a game called 11 Football Manager.
Our number 10 is 11.
Our number 10 is 11. I don't know actually why it's called 11.
Does that have something to do with the number of players or something?
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So this is a good intro into how well-versed in the theme of football, and specifically I believe this is soccer related, which I actually grew up with, because obviously growing up in South America, soccer is a huge deal. So I play soccer, but I've never actually been interested in following football teams. In this game, you play the manager of a football team, and essentially over the course of 8 weeks, you're going to be doing all of those things that I feel is what people do when they play those like fantasy team things, where you're swapping players and trying to kind of create the absolute best team, with an element of you're also, because you're kind of running your, not just the team, but almost like your club. You've got your stadium. You're also going to be trying to get steady income by getting sponsors, upgrading your stadium and the facilities, getting obviously recruiting players, selling players, getting other staff like, doctors and everyone else that helps make teams better. But you're also getting to have the match days where you're going to be planning the sort of attack and defense, and then seeing, all of these things are going to add up to points, and then whoever is the best manager overall, the most effective and efficient manager at the end of 8 weeks will be the winner.
Yeah, it's interesting because the theme feels really thick. Like, it feels like everything is really tied in, the theme and the mechanics, which usually we really love. For me, when I was trying to work out the crux of the mechanics, it's a very economic game, and that really appeals to me.
Yeah.
But the theme, for someone who's not that interested in theme, interestingly, the setting can create a barrier, because I found it harder to read about what I needed to do, only because I had so little interest, which is just terrible from a South American and Australian who's, we're meant to be very sport forward. But
as a people, individually,
stereotypically
so
as
much.
a people, individually not so much. Even though I thought that, if you are into soccer and into board games, this is going to be amazing. Like, I think that if you like those two things, you definitely should check out this campaign. For us, it's just lower ratings simply because of the fact that we can't get into the theme. But I really liked some of the economic touches in the game. It felt like it would have been a dry Euro if it had have been any other theme. I also really liked the there's like a dice stadium.
Oh, the stadium.
It's a dice tray, but it's like a little stadium. That was super cool. So so it's coming from a very like well-known, respected publisher. So definitely check that out. That one is on Game Found, and that is our number 10, 11.
Our number 9 is a game called Agemonia. In this game, we are going to be playing as different heroes, which are in the midst of this terrible flood. And so we're going to be trying to obviously save and protect people. At the same time, we're going to be fighting a lot of monsters and making our way through a whole range of different puzzles. This is it's a cooperative game, a campaign game as well. And it's one of those massively expansive story type games. Unfortunately for me, it seems like it has a lot of fantasy. Otherwise, if it wasn't so fantasy heavy, I think it would be is it up my alley or down my alley? I can never remember.
Right up your alley.
Right up my alley, yes. Because there's even scenario books and like background story books and obviously minis. And obviously you've got your hero hero, and this I didn't really delve too deeply into the specifics of what happened, because also you don't really want a lot of spoilers. But you're essentially going to be like upskilling your hero. You've got these stamina chips, and I thought it was interesting that it's using almost like poker chips to kind of keep track of your health. And obviously, as you're battling different things, you're going to be keeping an eye on that and expanding your hero player board to give you more space to have additional abilities and other things to do.
Now, Maggie was the one dragging this into our top 10. Full disclosure, I gave it a 4. Maggie gave it a 6. Obviously, being a cooperative game is not really my thing, but also fantasy, narrative-driven RPG. If you're into adventure RPGs, now is the time for you, because these are big, expansive games. There's been so many of them recently. Yeah. I do not envy you choosing between them and having to kind of allocate Kickstarter funds, because there are a lot of them. Maggie would obviously, if we were to get this game, would probably have to play it solo.
Definitely would be playing it solo.
Otherwise, you would get annoyed with me getting impatient at the game. So that's why it's a little lower on our list. But that is our number 9, Agemonia. Our number 8 is actually an expansion for a game. The expansion is called Azadi, and the game is Shazin. And this game is a game that I remember the base game being on Kickstarter before it was successfully funded. It has had quite positive reviews on BGG since people have received their copies of Shazin. It's coming out of India, and the artwork is just, I'll start there, because the componentry and the artwork is absolutely beautiful. But what is this game all about? It is an endeavor to bring politics to the table in a way that is flexible to different settings. And actually, if you look at the Shazin Azadi kind of campaign, when you first look at it and you don't know anything about the base game, I feel like it does seem quite heavy. Like the content seems very heavy, and it is absolutely about like kind of troubling political.
It's a fight, the struggle
turmoil.
To freedom. So it's a lot of the rebellion against imperialism, whatever form imperialism will take.
But I think the campaign comes across like quite dark in some ways, and quite heavy from a game perspective. But actually, I did a lot of digging around into okay, what's this base game all about? I'm intrigued. And the base game itself is really a game of area control, and it's quite interesting because you choose a setting. So whether that's American politics, I think you can do in the new expansion. I think there's like the Brexit campaign. And so you're choosing this political setting, and then the game plays out within that setting. Everyone's playing as a different a character within that setting, and even though it's based on historical events, I think that the choices you make are kind of like just part of the game, fictional choices.
Yeah, you can rewrite history. So
and so, but the board itself is actually like abstract, because it's always going to be divided up into different areas that represent different areas for control. And you're vying for control or voters, or just having the numbers on your side in these areas. And the way that you play out the game is kind of half this puzzle and half like this almost choose your own adventure style choices that you have to make along the way, which are on these thematic cards. So you have to read out the choice that you have available to you and decide how you're going to deal with that situation or conflict. And depending on the choice that you make, you're going to get different types of resources, and those resources represent, I guess, thematically the type of person that you are, and how that evolves over time. So I'm actually kind of intrigued by the gameplay. I'm not sure it's a game that we would always have the right audience for. I think you'd have to, there's a few cards. I was, reading some previous reviews of the base game, and there are some cards that come with trigger warnings because they represent, kind of scenarios that could,
confronting, or
it could be confronting or upsetting to people. And so I think just because of that, you have to pick your audience for this. You probably have to tell everybody what the game is about and the setting that you've chosen for that game to be in. But this is a new expansion that does bring some more some different settings. It is great to see that they're highlighting the people who are writing those political settings, and those people tend to be experts in that particular
there's like
area.
Archaeologists psychologists, historians for each individual, like the authors of those campaigns, which is really great to see.
Yeah, and like the cinematography and things that they're bringing into the campaign is really beautiful. But I just thought the game is interesting because the game is also very it has a lot of like not humor. Well,
Like
kind
dark,
of,
like
kind of
tongue-in-cheek sort of.
tongue-in-cheek, kind of, yeah, poking fun at different elements of these political
Almost
contexts.
sarcastic, like sarcastic humor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's probably not as heavy as it appears, even though it's got heavy topics in it. It's hard to explain, but I definitely think that there's more than meets the eye with this current kind of expansion campaign. So if that sounds interesting, definitely check it out.
I the thing that I think is going to be interesting for me is, even though it's not the type of game that I would look to play, because it's not a theme like anything sort of political or even like that sort of area control and vying for dominance, or I don't enjoy it. But the thing that I find really fascinating about this as a gaming experience is how thematically immersively you get into the politics of it, and how you might find yourself almost compromising on your ideology or doing things that you wouldn't have never expected that you would do
To get the resource that you need.
to get what you need, and to kind of sway the vote and get all that. So I think that's really interesting, more from like a psychological experiment point of view. And it's that some of the comments that are coming across of it's doing a really nice job of almost teaching you this by putting you in the shoes of some of those tough decisions that, you know, people in power or people trying to vie for leadership are going to be making.
But I think what's interesting, like as a thinker and someone who doesn't necessarily always connect what I'm doing in the game with the theme, maybe that would have less of an impact on me, because I was thinking when I was looking at these cards, even though you've put me in this like difficult context, I'm always picking the one that's going to give me the resources I need to win the game. Like that's just ultimately
efficiency.
I am just like
things,
efficiency puzzle, ignore all flavor text.
Yeah. Whereas I would be all conflicted and like, but I couldn't possibly
really
betray my people.
Exactly.
And what about
So maybe this game is going to be more for a themer who's into that political context. But that is our number 8, Shazin Azadi.
Our number 7 is a game called EOS Island of Angels. And in this game, we're playing as one of my probably favorite topics, which is kind of like piratey, sailing the seas sort of theme. But you're playing as a captain who has a crew of different heroes who have different abilities. And what we're all trying to do is we're trying to find the best and most effective path to reach the Island of Angels, awaken these angels with the hope that they can bring light back to our war-ridden world. As we're doing this in, piratey sort of style, we're going to be choosing or trying to choose the best path to navigate. And along the way, we're going to be, hopefully encountering and awakening some of these angels who we can then bring on board, quite literally on board, and make them help our little engine build that is all of our heroes, because they're going to be the different actions that we're going to be doing time and time, like as the turns go. But the other thing is, as you do when you're going through treacherous waters, you're going to be encountering also monsters, demon lords, which are apparently very, very bad, and so there's that balance of things. One of the things that I enjoy about this game is that there's a lot of positive player interaction, so you're never going to be doing things to just directly harm a fellow captain. You're going to be, in fact, it appears that you can actually play or use each other's actions, and if someone's using one of your actions, you can get a benefit for that, because ultimately it's in all of our best interests that we get the light back and save the world, essentially, but you're still out for yourself at the end of the day. Yeah.
And you gave this a higher rating than me. You gave it a 6 and I gave it a 5. And that's just reflective, I guess, of my level of interest in probably the theme. I found it like it lent a little too heavy into fantasy for my personal taste. But I did enjoy the fact that those heroes kind of act as the worker placement spots, or rather the action selection system, and that you can't play the same hero 2 turns turns in a row. So kind of creating that like scythe-like choice of what you're going to do next based on what you have available to you now. So I don't know, there were some mechanics here, but none of the thematic elements really came together for me in a way that, I don't know. I was just less excited about it overall.
Yeah, I find it overall intriguing, and it is a theme that I enjoy. I don't know why. There's something that's kind of holding me back from it, and I can't quite point my finger on what it is. But yeah, I don't know if it's me, because it does seem like it's immersive, and you're kind of but I don't know why.
Yeah, generally, I think because you're also upgrading the heroes as well and things, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the engine building element of it. Your heroes are kind of,
And traditionally, that hasn't been something that we've really been that into, like the upskilling of like a kind of group of people and that kind of thing. Maybe you're getting a bit more into it now with your adventure style games, so maybe you would enjoy this a bit more. You have given it a higher rating. I will say that I think King Raccoon is the main publishing company, I believe. And, I hear really good things about them. I think there's been a couple of issues with their partner that they're partnering with, Grey Fox Games. I know that there's been some previous Kickstarter campaigns that maybe haven't gone as well, or
the fulfillment
issues. I haven't been affected by that personally, but just as a cautionary tale, maybe just check out and do a bit of your own research on that. But that is our number 7, EOS Island of Angels.
And number 6 is a game called Green Hell, which is based on a video game by the same name, and this is the board game adaptation of it. Now, in this game, we are playing, it's again another cooperative, non-legacy campaign.
Another one.
Place 1 to 4 in our household. If it ever happens, is going to be playing 1, because you probably
Which is interesting because you don't want to play a cooperative game either, but you have to play it by yourself.
I will play co-op by myself. I will not play with other people. But if I'm playing with other people, I want it to be competitive, but not too competitive, not head-to-head, kind of parallel competitive, like Battle of Wits, multiplayer solitaire. I'm very difficult.
It's very niche.
I'm extremely niche in my
I'm surprised we own any board games.
But lucky there's so many out there. Find something that will hit the nail on the head. But back to Green Hell. So in Green Hell, it's the Amazon jungle that is the Green Hell, and that is trying to kill us. And why are we even there in the first place? We're there on an expedition to try and rescue the employee of a pharmaceutical company that's gone missing. So I think it must have been a scientist that's gone out there to try and find something. We've lost all communication, and so we've been sent to track them down. But above all things, we kind of have to survive. So it's the type of game that it is. It's quite very Robinson Crusoe style. Apparently, one, because it's very, very difficult. Also because it's survival, and every turn you take, something is trying to make sure you're dead.
I thought it was interesting in the video they mentioned like drinking dirty water and getting sick from that, and then one of the little like the water droplets, some of them are dirty.
Yeah, it's like dirty water, and then you have to purify water.
Really, everything is out to get you in this game.
Oh, and then and the way that it sort of plays out is you're going to be exploring the jungle. So as you're moving, you're going to be obviously encountering events, having to create makeshift or craft makeshift weapons or shelter. It's essentially Alone, that TV show that you love.
Oh yeah, I do love
Alone,
that show.
or like Bear Grylls, or those sort of survivalist type things. That on a board game, which is kind of interesting.
It is interesting. For me, the most interesting part was the polyomino tiles.
Yes.
Tell me more about this puzzle where you have to fit all of your equipment into your backpack.
That's one thing, yes.
And they're all polyomino tiles, and that's about the only thing that I found interesting about this experience.
They've got different sets of dice. So one of the sets of dice is when you go searching. And so what I love about this is the dice have half elements on them. And so you're having to, when you roll the dice, you get all these sort of half icons and put them together to create a full banana, for example. So it's like you found food, or you found a stone, or you found whatever. The other thing is they have ayahuasca dice. So ayahuasca is this sort of hallucinogenic drink from the Amazons that you often hear people that are kind of either wanting to work through a trauma or have a spiritual experience. And the interesting thing with those dice is that you can have good results or bad results, which is kind of like the good trips or bad trips, and they can either be like enlightening and help you with stuff, or it can be really, really bad and really mess you up. And so I thought that was an interesting little touch. The other thing that I really enjoy is every evening when night falls, there's you have to use this jungle dice tower.
Oh yeah.
To kind of find out what damage you took, whatever you're staying, your shelter took overnight, and any dangers that happen overnight. The jungle actually has like the dice tower. One of the versions has like a jungle sort of lining or image to it, and I think that would be pretty cool as from a table presence point.
Yeah, it looks really premium. Yeah, but obviously Maggie is very excited about this.
I love survival stuff.
Why aren't we backing this then?
I mean, it's a good question. I think.
You gave it a 6.
Yeah, I gave it a 6. I think there's a lot of elements that I enjoy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I'm not. I think it's probably I'm sort of thinking, well, I've got Robinson Crusoe. I know that I've got Robinson Crusoe, the big book coming as well, and so that's a lot of that theme. Even though I do love that theme, I don't know, with shipping the way that it is, that's like, it's something really has to fully grab me, like, to justify.
And also, you know, that you're only going to be playing it solo rather than... That's not a consideration.
That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. That's just me then. I'm the only one that wants to play together, so that's fine. Moving right along, but that is our number 6, Green Hell. And number 5 is a game called Earth and War, and this is where I'm going to step back in because this one's a little more abstract. Even though there is a theme related to this game, if you looked at it, you'd be mistaken to think that it is just an abstract game because we are playing as giant golem that have been developed in World War One. To battle enemy troops. However, the enemy troops have also created a golem, and now it's just a war of the golems. So in this game of Golem v Golem, and I'm going to say the word golem many times as I'm talking about this.
They're the best bit.
Well, they are the only bit because they're just the 2 golems and you are battling on this grid, very abstract board, which is meant to represent the territory in this world war. And you're going to be programming different dice to be able to take movement and attack each other. And that's where I think my interest was piqued. It's because it's really interesting because you're using not only the number on the die, but also the color of the die as well as its positioning on this separate player grid that you're using to program your movement. And so it's not a long game, but it is a game where you're just trying to attack each other and move around each other in this space by utilizing the different dice that you have, which may be kind of not in line with what you need to be able to get things done, and you're trying to also move around your opponent who's also doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think the thing that I like the most with this is that I really like the artwork or the aesthetic of the board and the golems themselves, the clay golems.
Yeah,
really
the golem
cool.
itself is actually by a Canadian designer who works with clay and has created this golem figure for the game. I agree. That's really eye-catching. It's a really beautiful design. And in the game itself, they also have tried not to use any plastic at all. So everything is made either of cardboard or clay or wood, because there are 2 different versions that you can back of this game. The base version, which is $48-ish, it comes with wooden golems. If you move up to the more premium kind of that doubles the price, I believe, you will get like the beautiful kind of ceramic or clay styled golems.
Yeah.
So of course, if we were looking to back this, I think a lot of it for Maggie's interest would be kind of the beautiful design of it.
It's too abstract ultimately.
Ultimately, it's pretty abstract and maybe quite simple, but we'd want that premium version, which is 93 Australian dollars and then $50 in postage. That ends up being the price of a very kind of expensive game. And so unfortunately we are priced out on this occasion. But if it's cheaper where you are, go and check that out. That is our number 5, Earth and War. Our number 4 is a game called Relics of Raja Vihara, which is actually not that base game, but this campaign, you can pick up the base game, but it's really all about the expansion called Mantalo's Revenge.
Yeah, so in this game, we're all playing as archaeologists or how I like to call it, relic finders or gem finders, and it's actually a solo only game.
It is, and yet it's at our number 4 spot. So let's just pause for a second and talk about our scores. I gave it a 6 for a solo only game.
Yeah, I am surprised by that.
Maggie gave it a 6, but that's important to note because we're already at our number 4 and we're still in the 6s.
Yes.
So that's kind of our, medium excitement.
Yeah, so it's like
excitement.
It's for me. It's like I'll play it. I probably wouldn't like seek it out and back it myself. But this is why. So in this game, we're like relic finders, and we're going into this ancient palace. And we have a nemesis, as you do, and they've beaten us to it. So they're already in there. They're vying for power. Who knows what they're going to do with that relic? Probably destroy the world. So we have to make sure that we find them first. And so it's actually going to be a campaign. So you've got, I believe it's over 50 different levels. Or 50 different scenarios across 5 different levels, and each level is sort of harder. It's sort of incrementally harder in terms of the difficulty, and it's very much a 3D, very tactile puzzle. So you're going to be kind of Tomb Raider style, moving around this palace or this map, and you're going to be able to do things like, well, obviously move around, push these crates and get on top of crates, push crates down onto different areas, sort of release crates from underneath so that other things fall down, things like gems. Ultimately, you're going to be trying to look for or capture or grab the gem at each level. Sometimes your goal might be to frustrate the plans of your nemesis, who might be on the same level. Another times it might be to actually stop the nemesis, which I'm not super keen on, because the way you stop them is by like
crushing them.
It's like, that seems extreme and not very...
Crush them with anything from any height, I believe it says in the rules. But I think this is really interesting because it reminds me of like a puzzle app that you would play where
very much.
You only really get one chance to move through and do everything in the correct order, because you can push things around but you can't pull them back to where they were. So if you mess up and you can't finish the puzzle, you just have to reset the puzzle, and that's how you move through the different stages. And actually that kind of has me intrigued. I know that the base game actually was really well received and a lot of solo gamers in particular love it. It catches my attention because I'm not going to sit down and play a whole solo campaign, but if it's a discrete puzzle, I probably would sit down if it was there and give it a go. One of my weird things is I don't particularly like fiddliness in games, so having to reset the puzzle is something that would definitely annoy me as a gamer. But if I had Maggie to reset it for me, then I'd be like, babe, can you reset the puzzle?
I'm just gonna grab a shower. I'm gonna go eat something, and
I come back. And you saw the next level.
It's a solo game. Yeah, it's a solo game. So I don't know how we would be able to. I guess you could technically co-op and just like try and problem
we could
solve.
work together. Interestingly, we don't like cooperative games generally, but we do like things like escape rooms.
We love escape rooms.
Yeah, where we're trying to solve a puzzle, because we still get to. I think you still get to feel like the clever one who solved something.
Maybe.
Like it's still semi like, oh yeah, I worked that out before you did.
Okay.
So
Sure.
It's still a bit competitive.
Yeah. I think for me the reason that it doesn't score higher is because it's still quite an abstract puzzle, even though it's a theme that I'm okay with. It's just I know that I'm always initially on principle I enjoy the concept of that type of puzzle, but in reality I get bored with it quite quickly, partly because I'm not very good at it. So I'm just kind of like, I'm over it. So I think for me, if I don't have an immersive story and something that I'm like
low perseverance, or
very, very low perseverance when it comes to that. If I don't have a strong sense of mission and things happening and discovery along the way, I sort of
all
lose
that you
interest.
have waiting for you is a slightly different, harder puzzle of the same thing.
Exactly. So it's the same thing over and over and over.
But I can totally see this is really like why people would love this game. It seems really unique. The expansion brings, I think, another 30 levels or something, as well as some new pieces.
New
ramps,
new locations, essentially. I believe.
So check that out if you haven't seen it already. But that is our number 4, Relics of Rajavihara. Our number 3 is a game called The Artemis Odyssey. Now, The Artemis Odyssey is a follow-up game to, or in the same universe as the Artemis Project, but this is a competitive game, not a cooperative game, and it's by completely different designers. So actually this game is a remake of a different game called Ad Astra, of which one of the designers is, I always pronounce his name wrong, Sergei Leguet, who is a French designer who obviously designed the game Nidavellir. So he worked on this game along with another designer, and this game is now being brought into, as I mentioned, this Artemis universe, and it's an interesting game because it's set in space, which is not usually a theme that we are attracted to.
Resonate with, yeah.
But the mechanics here I thought were really interesting. The game is based around programming. So if you know games like Colt Express, where you are programming out your actions in advance, you're kind of doing that here in secret on a central player board. So everyone is adding cards to the central player board that are going to enable them to get different types of things done. But when those programmed actions are revealed, they are also going to allow every other player to take some sort of action as well. So what makes that really interesting in my mind is that if you're paying attention to what other players are doing, which is something that I often do and Maggie doesn't do very often,
bad at, yes.
You might be able to predict what the next best action is for them to take, thereby, making it that you don't need to take an action because you know that if you gamble on them doing that thing, you might get to take some benefits along the way.
Yeah.
So I thought that was just really interesting as an underlying mechanic for this game.
Yeah. I think overall, again, I think it sounds quite interesting in terms of all the different things that you're going to be able to do with those actions, and the getting resources, but also there's like scoring along the way. So like some of those cards are for scoring conditions. So that's an interesting concept to me of you're well, I guess you're always kind of scoring along the way, but to play an action that is just solely a scoring action. Again, thematically, I don't know how immersive it's going to be and how thematically it's going to feel playing. I feel like it's probably going to be all right because I like and not like the fact that they've done the discs. You know how you've got the different...
there's no real player board.
Yeah, I don't enjoy the fact that there's no real player board, but I do appreciate that that does make it feel like it's planets and stars that you're visiting. So
one thing I do appreciate is the game trays that come with the Kickstarter edition are absolutely amazing and designed to fit all of a player's like requirements together. And I think that is particularly important when you don't have a game board because you don't have somewhere to sit everything nice and neatly. So at least you've got everything self-contained in that player game tray. So I really like that. I feel like there's a lot of value in the Kickstarter edition here. It's actually like quite reasonably priced. It's $65 and the Kickstarter edition comes with a lot of minis, and it also comes with these game trays. So if you are into this game, that for me is reason enough to go in on the Kickstarter version instead of waiting for retail.
Okay.
We haven't backed this yet. As I'm talking about it, I feel like there are a lot of reasons to back it. Shipping to Australia was $25, which is kind of on the high side, but not compared to the $40 or $50 or $80 that we're seeing at the moment. So all in all, I feel like this game is pretty good value, and I feel like it could be like a nice quick game with a good program. We don't have too many programming games in our collection.
No, but I'm also not a huge fan of programming games. So that's why I was like, I'm not
just haven't tried the right one yet.
Maybe, but that's why I'm sort of not rushing to like get more programming games. Because for example, with Colt Express, I really enjoyed that game. But as a gateway for when, if we're playing it with non-gamers, because it's like you've got that element of like the surprise and delight of, what you chose and, what I chose. But it's not something that I would, if I have more kind of serious gamers around and I want to just like delve into strategy, I guess because there's the unknown.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like it's not so much the programming, it's the hidden and reveal element that you don't like, because you don't like that in other games, like when you're doing auction, like bidding and that kind of thing. Whenever you're doing something closed and then revealing. I don't like hidden information. Yes. But anyway, that's just a preference thing. I don't know. I think that this could be a nice, light, fun game. Not at all into the space theme, but definitely... interested because of the designer and because of the underlying mechanic where everyone is sharing in that programming element. So I'm intrigued. Haven't backed it yet, but wavering. That is our number 3, the Artemis Odyssey. Our number 2 is a bit of a tongue twister, and that is Mythic Mischief. And I say that because I've filmed this a couple of times now. Mythic Mischief
I can't even say
is an asymmetric puzzle game. It's our number 2 of this fortnight. However, I will note that we're still giving 6s. So at this point, we're both giving it a 6. It's a 6 overall. But it is an interesting little puzzle game.
Yeah, so we're playing as different factions of students at Mythic Manor, and essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the other factions of students in trouble. We want to get them caught by the tome keeper in the library, who's going to be moving around, going to collecting, the tomes of books that have fallen or have been kind of read and put aside. And you don't want them to catch you not in class and catch you kind of roaming through the library. And so what we're going to, a lot of it is going to be just planning, knowing ahead of time the directions, the places that the tome keeper is going to be moving to. I enjoy that you've got a morning or like before lunch and after lunch. Yeah, it's very school kind of reminiscent, and it feels like it's going to be essentially like three rounds and 3 rounds of 6 rounds altogether. And there's different things that happen. So some of your asymmetric abilities are going to be different, and you'll get different powers depending on which side of the day you're working with.
And some of the things that you can do are very similar, not asymmetric at all. Like you can move around, but ultimately you're trying to really create this situation where your opponent in the game is going to be kind of caught by the tome keeper.
Yeah.
And so the tome keeper's path is known from the beginning, and the tome keeper in the puzzle always takes the shortest path to get to their next destination. So knowing that, you can manipulate the game space, the objects that are in the way, to kind of change the path of the tome keeper. But also one of your abilities is that you can actually move your opponents as well and put them in harm's way without directly putting them on the tome keeper. You can put them close to or in the path of the tome keeper. So I think that is like a cute and interesting theme for what is really quite an abstract puzzle. I would say that it's probably theme light in my evaluation of it. It's like cute.
It's cute. Like the production quality of it looks really good.
Absolutely beautiful.
The artwork and all of that looks very, very nice.
Yes, but what you're ultimately trying to do, like for my mechanical brain, I guess I don't see the theme so much, because it is definitely like an abstract grid-like puzzle, and you're trying to work out the most effective way to kind of move things around. And I really like the player boards because they give you not just the abilities, but also like how powerful those abilities are, using kind of like these little tokens that have different numbers on them that move around. You can also get more powerful over time. And the asymmetric abilities are something that we don't tend to like too much in games, but they seem simple enough that you've got your base actions that everybody can do, and then you can do a couple of things differently. So I am interested by this game, but probably not enough to back it.
I feel like there's not enough meat in it. Like it feels quite, I'm not gonna say light. It feels light in terms of immersiveness in terms of like there's no like story or like complex strategies and stuff, aside from just like figuring out how am I going to like got you in the way.
I'm a little bit worried about that element of the game, because you tend to not like abstract puzzles, but then also when it's a direct head-to-head style game, which this very much is, even when you play with more than 2 players, you're playing on teams. So that's an interesting point about this game, is you'd be playing 2 on 2 to play out the puzzle, and is a lot of just like take that, like the name of the game is like all take that, and so I feel like you might get a little frustrated, particularly if it was 2 people ganging up on you.
I'm out.
You would be out on that. But if you are into puzzle abstract games like that with a really cute theme, high production value, definitely go and check out Mythic Mischief, which is on GameFound. And our number 1 game for the fortnight is a game called Solar Sphere. Now, Solar Sphere is a space-themed game, which is something that doesn't normally appeal to us. And it's our number 1 because there are some familiar mechanics here that we know and love. And we love worker placement. And this is dice worker placement, which we also love. In this game, you are going to be managing different destinations that you're going to with your ships, which are your dice. And where they're going depends on the value of that die, and you're going to be going out and collecting resources. There's like this semi-co-op element where you're fighting the resistance to get victory points through doing that. You can also go and help build the solar sphere itself. So there's all of these, like, for me, it's the multiple paths to victory.
Yeah, I agree. It's very Euro reminiscent in terms of all the different things that you're doing. I like also the fact that you can, a lot of the cards that are allowing for that kind of engine building thing is all the people or the crew that you're recruiting, and they all have obviously their own different abilities, and apparently you can kind of combo or put those abilities together to get you better results.
And retire them as well. So when you retire them, I think you also get benefits. I really like the use of the drones in this game. So the drones are a resource that allow you to manipulate the die result. So basically you need to spend them to change your die to go where you want to go. But the trade-off there is that the drones are multi-use, and so they also allow you to get other things done that you need to get done. So if you're using them just to manipulate the die, you're being kind of inefficient. And so I just think that will add some nice tension into the game. It's been getting some good reviews so far of the reviewers who have had prototype copies. So it is pinging my radar. I'm interested in it because it has a lot of mechanics that are familiar to us, and it seems to be just integrated in a really nice way that I think when I was reading through, it really felt like it would come together in a nice game experience, which is, it's space. And
that's probably the biggest barrier, and I think the main reason we wouldn't be back in, it's not a theme that we
exactly. And actually, if it had been any other theme, it probably would have been much more highly rated by us. But it's just that context or the setting really does it doesn't excite us. Which is why we're still giving this a 6. So
spent the fortnight for it. So if you're into space asymmetric engine building games, this is it. This is going to be an
campaign cooperative adventures.
Yeah. This is going to be an expensive week for you.
We haven't actually backed anything so far this fortnight, which is a ThinkerThemer and absolutely an Amy first. So we're going to save some money.
The wallet's like,
finally.
Goodness. Yeah.
But that's not to say that it will stay that way, because I might be looking back through the campaigns and end up backing one of these games, because the more we talk about them, the more I get excited about them, which makes me more likely to back them. But for now, we haven't backed anything. There is a bigger week or bigger fortnight of games coming up in the next couple of weeks. So certainly it will be a bigger episode next fortnight, so we should probably save our money. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and we will be back in another 2 weeks with another episode of Back Chat, and next week we'll be bringing back Small Talk. But thanks very much for watching, and bye for now. Bye.